to talk with you about letter writing, for example.
Okay.
And Spoon is formulating a letter writing workshop idea. And I'm doing some of that as well. Um, we talk a lot about letter writing, and I think both of us see it as a tool for giving people a space that they don't usually have in their
Mm.
day-to-day lives, and a way to kind of get under the distractions of everyday life and really connect with what's inside of them. And if we can get people into the habit through whichever way, whether it's kids writing to faraway grandparents or writing to their favorite teacher or their best friend who they are sitting next to anyway, or
Mhm.
anything, um, I think that can open doors and start a habit. Or maybe it's an adult who has written a letter to themselves when they were younger for the first time in a while, or I don't know. I think the community needs this. The larger global community needs this.
Mm.
Um, and Spoon needs letters again. I checked in with him and he says he doesn't get them hardly at all anymore. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's true. I mean, we already started talking about uh I know that he was the letters I got from Spoon were pretty much the only letters that I received, except for bills and stuff like that, subscriptions.
Yeah.
Mm. And since they've changed the whole model of communication at the prison with tablets and
Hmm.
just do now, right? So we're all doing email and then it became text.
Yeah.
Um, uh, it really became um, expedient, but we lost something really big.
Yeah, absolutely. I did the same thing with my communications with Spoon. It used to be all letter writing and um, and phone calls. And even when the emails were happening, they were kind of in letter format because you would email him, but then they would have to print it out and give it to
Yeah, yeah,
him. So it still had that.
it was weird.
But yeah, the texting thing. And what a little microcosm of what the global community has gone through with that shift in mediums.
Yeah, his when I get texts from Spoon, he's always upbeat, right?
Yeah.
Everything exclamation mark.
Me
Um,
too. Me
and
too.
they're very short. I mean, you know, that's what texts are. I mean, my texts tend to be much longer because I'm working on a keyboard, and I don't know. I'm not even sure if he's how he's typing. So
Yeah, I don't know either. Yeah.
so that could also play a role in it. But I haven't written him a snail mail, and I don't even remember how long.
Yeah. Yeah, I realized that there's something about having a life that is compatible with letter writing that
Yeah,
goes along with letter writing.
yeah.
And
I mean, I
yeah.
spend all day on the computer, like most people, I
Hmm.
think. And when I'm, even when I'm taking notes, even when I'm signing my name, it's just like, how do I do this, right? My
Mm.
body hand is just not accustomed anymore, and I get very impatient, and it's very sloppy even. So
Yeah.
we'd like to be able to. Um, it's like I need to put myself back to school, right? I need to remember, not that I was ever had great penmanship when I wrote, but it's much worse now. And I think if I practiced and slowed down,
Hmm.
and set the time aside, it would get better.
Do you find yourself writing about different things or in a different way when you're writing by hand versus typing?
Uh, yeah, I find it really even I'll say even before computers. I didn't really start writing until there were computers, but um, I find that my brain moves too fast
Hmm.
to write anything by hand. Um, and even if it didn't, um, writing is rewriting. So there's just so many corrections. It's just such a mess to try to do that. And I think
Oh,
about, how writers used to do this before computers and before typewriters. I mean, they would they would write in notebooks. I don't know how. Can't
yeah,
can't imagine how they could do that.
I
So
know. Composing a book or a reference book, even worse.
uh, so so most of my writing, almost all my writing is on the computer. That said, when I go for walks, I'm in Montreal. I go for walks up the mountain,
Mm.
and I will sometimes bring a notebook with me, or I will type notes into my phone. Um, it's something about the physicality of walking.
Yeah.
Maybe it's connected to nature, I'm not sure, but for me, it's just um, getting getting away from the screen, away from the office, and just going out and connecting, with my feet on the ground. Somehow that opens me up to ideas,
Hmm.
that um, sometimes I'm trying to solve a problem, but mostly I'm just walking, and then ideas will come to me, and I'll scribble them down.
Yeah. Do you have a notation that looks like, or so you have a small notebook that you bring with you sometimes too?
I wish I could say that. I'm really not that organized. I've got notebooks all over the place, and I write something and try to find it after. It's hard.
Oh yeah, why?
And uh, I'm not. It's funny, actually. Sometimes the act of writing, the physical act of writing, implants the idea in my head. It's not.
Hmm.
It's not even. I don't even need to go back. It's already. It's the motion of it has implanted it in my brain.
Absolutely.
In a way that doesn't happen when I'm clicking, right?
Yeah, I'm really interested in that. I always remember this book called The Missing Ink,
Hmm.
which I thought was a nice punny title too. And the author talks about the lost art of handwriting. I think that might be the subtitle, and how when we write by hand, we're activating our brain in a different way. That there are neural pathways that are created or that we're refiring,
Yeah,
and that typing just doesn't do that for us. And he talks about students learning more effectively when writing things out by hand. And I
yeah,
just, in my own life, the number of times I've said, I'll write it down and then I'll remember it.
yeah, yeah. Well, I've also found it really depends on the pen too, or what
Yes.
utensil you're using. I bought a bunch of new pens like last week, and I really don't like them. They're
Mm,
too fast. It's just there's no effort involved. It's just it just I don't need something to make me move faster. I need a pen where I actually have to, you know, implant on a page a little bit,
wow.
I think.
That's so fascinating, especially because speed was part of your desire for typing, just to be able
Yes,
to get the ideas out faster.
yes, it's true. But my writing is the penmanship is just so poor that I haven't tried, but just like even writing grocery lists and stuff, it just seems like slow down.
Yeah. I I like using pens in those different ways. I remember I was doing a bookmaking project once, and I wanted to have kind of the texture of text as a background. And I was going to write something, but it had to look a certain way. So I got like a really inky, fast pen and flew through it so that I could like force my handwriting in a certain direction. Um, but I mean, there are so many people. Okay. the two people that I receive the most letters from are Spoon
Yeah.
and also my college roommate Yiwei in Singapore. And her handwriting is my favorite handwriting because it's just aesthetically gorgeous. It's also almost unintelligible. It's quite
Well,
rough.
it's funny you talked about old roommates. I actually, um, I've forgotten about this, but I renewed an acquaintance, a friendship with an old friend from childhood last summer because we had a mutual friend who passed away.
Mm,
And he lives out west, and we talked a bit on the phone and we talked by email, but he really likes writing letters. And
yeah.
so all last summer, um, I don't even have a mailbox here. I'm at the cottage. I have a neighbor, who I use.
Wow.
She brings me my letters like a mailman. And he's he analyzes my letters in a very odd way to me. Um, he said that I don't um, I don't dot all of my I's, but I'm consistent with the words that I do dot. So I thought, oh wow, I mean this is a whole new level of writing and analyzing things. And his own writing is it's actually I think he actually prints.
Oh, okay.
So
Wow.
but it's physical, so it arrives in the mail and it's an event.
Yeah. I know we've exchanged letters a couple of years
Yes,
ago, just a couple. And I was like, oh, I should find those and then bring them. And
yes,
one of them,
I'm glad you reminded me because they were so incredible the way you decorated the envelope.
thank you.
Like I haven't received something like that since I don't know, like decades.
I really love the form of envelopes. And I grew up really far away from my grandparents. One set was in Connecticut and one set was in British Columbia, and I was in San Diego. So everyone was very far away. So there were a lot of letters. And sometimes I think that must have been the start of the fascination. But
Mm,
yeah. And then there's this online community called the International Union of Mail Artists, MAIL, of
mm.
course. And it's very confusing, especially when I say it to someone. I'm like, yes, I sometimes participate.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Like men need a union.
right. Um, but it's lovely. And there are these especially chaotic and joyous conventions to mail art. And the point is to just send the letters or send the postcards and make the outside of it really the event.
Yes. Yeah.
And but I
Yeah.
like both.
Well, you're reminding me, I mentioned this friend of mine who passed away last summer. Um, it was unexpected and it was very
Mm,
strange
mm,
circumstances. And uh, I have kept all of his letters that he sent me. There was a time when I grew up in Ottawa and I moved away after grade 11. And so we wrote between
yeah.
grade 12, 13, and then we ended up going to the same university. So we stopped.
Wow.
But I have all of these letters and I'm analyzing them for, uh, I mean, I haven't read them since like 40 years. And
Yeah.
I'm analyzing them for clues to his state of mind.
Mm.
And he he also used to draw things on the envelopes or inside the page so that, I would have to turn the page all the way around, like to read the word.
Right.
So, yeah, that was kind of fun.
Mm. That's such an incredible time to have letters from because that's so much growth happens at that age and at that moment.
Mm. Even then, he was complaining about my penmanship. So
Oh no.
this has been a problem for a while, I guess.
Well, you know, I guess I'm thinking of my bookmaking classes at art school, but one of my favorite professors, Anne Pelican, um, had this thing that she told to all of us, and we were like the beginner bookmaking students. So we were like doing our best, but these were sloppy objects. And she said, remember, if you can't fix it, feature it. And from a very incredibly exacting woman who had been a paper conservator for 30 years, like this was a beautiful thing to hear. And I go back to it all the time. But like maybe the penmanship, maybe that's the feature. Maybe it's a puzzle or a mystery or something that you can hide, like a code.
It's a nice thought.
Or maybe with the deliberate pens, the slow pens, that will change. It seems like you've been involved in a number of projects now that stem from memorializing and celebration, but also from grief. And I've been thinking about grief and the world and the state of our shared world, and how grief and grieving are just brutal teachers. Is there anything from those classes that you could share?
Um, my classes, you mean,
From grief.
uh, okay. School of Grief. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, well, I think a lot about grief and art.
Hmm.
Um, the New York Times had a big feature on this not long ago.
Mm.
There was an incredible quote. I can't remember the author, um, but she was saying that she did not write for catharsis, and I really identify with that.
Hmm.
Um, it's not about um, getting over something, closure, moving on, all those cliches we hear about all the time. It's about going deeper and exploring uh, what it means and how it manifests. And so that's what I've been doing for the past few years with the series of personal essays or creative nonfiction.
Hmm.
Um, um, I'm looking at my relationship to my parents and my relationship to my late wife, Mishka,
Hmm.
and their relationship to each other. And there were several inciting incidents, and I come back to them through various metaphors. It's like looking at them through a different lens each time. And
Hmm.
that's the joy of writing. You know, I mean, I'm I'm doing this because I like to put words together um, in different ways and to um, create or evoke something in the reader. Um, I also think that the more that I do it, not only is it not about catharsis, it's actually making me more compassionate for other people, right? Because it puts you in a particular space where you can, um, at least I can identify and see other people suffering more clearly and witness it. I mean,
Yes.
everybody needs to be witnessed, I think. And
Hmm.
I think that's um, looking at the bigger scheme of things and how people are entrenched in their tribes. You know, so much of it is about being heard. And if they don't
Yes.
heard, then they act out.
Yeah. Yeah. That seems so clear. And the ability to be present with someone
Yeah,
maybe lets them be present with themselves and bring down that reaction. And
yeah. Being present is a huge thing because most of us, I think, um, struggle with witnessing. I mean, you want to, especially if you care for someone, you want to take their pain away, right? You want to comfort them, which is not always, first of all, doesn't really work very well, but second of
Yeah.
all, can be productive
Hmm.
because the person doesn't necessarily want to be comforted. They just want to be heard. And so then it becomes a question of holding space, right?
Hmm.
For whatever the person is going through or needs to express, and not trying to fix it to make it better.
Are there certain questions that you ask or things that you don't say, even when you're doing this for someone?
Um, I would uh, kind of check in with them just to see um, what they need. You
Mm.
know, even giving someone a hug is not necessarily a good thing. You know,
Right.
sometimes it's the person just needs to feel what they're feeling without um, without being comforted. It's actually it's much more intimate to do that. You know,
Hmm.
to be um, so vulnerable that um, you're allowing yourself to be seen in the moment of suffering, and the other person is allowing you that space. Um, yeah, it's not something that I could do with everyone.
Mm. Yeah. I think close to this, this is a hopeful question. But I know that being with grief can also often, hopefully not for the larger percentage of the time that you're with it, but can often be being with despair too.
Mm.
And how do you transmute despair?
Um, I think you just let it in when it comes.
Mm.
Mm. You know Rumi, the
A little
Sufi?
bit.
Okay. He has a poem that I remember um, called The Guest House.
Mm.
And it's this idea that, we're just this, um, we're here and we can allow all of these visitors to come in and um, they don't have to stay very long. But uh, I was just thinking about this actually the other day. The more you try to do something or not do something, the more difficult it is, I find.
Right.
So I don't want to feel this, or I'm trying to feel this, and the effort kind of creates a block, I think, and
Hmm.
sometimes a block. So I don't personally don't feel um, a lot of despair. Um, I can feel grief for sure, um, but uh, it's it's passing. It really is. I mean, um, I'm at this cottage, which is built by my father in 1951, and it's surrounded in memories, and
Right.
I write a lot about it in the essays that I'm working on. Um, and um, things come up. Yesterday I was in the bathroom looking for a box of Kleenex in the closet, and I pulled the box out, and it had my mother's name on it, and it was like, mm, because that
Yeah.
that that means it was a box of Kleenex she had in the nursing home.
Hmm.
They never actually opened it. They just had
Right.
labeled it. And so, I mean, I haven't seen that. I don't even remember how long. Um, so these moments, right? The moments come up, and um, uh, I feel like I'm thrown back into a moment of grief, and then um, it passes, it depends how long
Yeah.
you do with it.
Because you make the space for yourself too, to feel it, to let it in,
Hmm,
and to move through it. I
yeah.
think I think so many people don't feel that it's an option to feel through it.
Hmm.
Like they're afraid of that.
Afraid they're going to get lost in, yeah.
Yeah.
I
I
just,
mean, I think I'm often afraid of despair because that's something that I um, have fallen into before and that always feels rather threatening. And I have to keep busy these things that maybe keep me too busy for letter writing, which, can see how I'm getting away from what would really help. Um, but making art and encouraging people to make art is like a foothold and something that I can like really grasp strongly to and say, okay, if I'm making art and if other people are making their art, then there's no room for feeling despair, and then I can avoid it.
how's that working out?
Oh, it's a mixed bag. I think that making the art does fill a well inside of me or makes me stronger in my sense of knowing that there is nothing to despair, that
Hmm,
there is beauty, like to turn the gaze, to turn my focus to something that I think is always inspiring, and that in every breath there's something inspiring because you're alive, you're here.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I know that when I'm feeling the best about the people that I've been grieving, that that you continue grieving. Um, I'm excited to be alive in this world that they were excited to, or that they were alive in, and that you know that there's still something to add to their story by continuing my story.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. I was talking a lot about my essays, but I also write fiction.
Hmm.
Um, my first novel and my next novel both are apocryphal. So in other words, they're dealing with um, real people. Um, and I really enjoy doing that because it's like I'm giving them a second life.
Yeah, yeah,
And in one case, in my first book, it was an American author who was hugely successful in the teens, like 1910, 1920, and then gradually faded from view, and nobody knows who he is anymore.
wow,
And um, the novel that I'm just finished working on is about a family where the brothers and sisters aren't famous at all. They just happen to have um, a bunch of their letters that go back from to the late 1800s into the
yeah,
1940s. And I've been really taken by the daughter of this family. She's the sole daughter. She has four or five brothers.
ooh,
And um, learning about her life through the letters and then projecting um, based on that,
hmm,
creating, creating a story around that, and giving her witnessing what she went through and also adding to it and imagining it my own way. I find that as a writer, it's really exciting to do that.
yeah. What a way of being with the primary source. Like,
Mhm.
that's so amazing.
Yeah.
Do you find that there are trends of speech or words or phrases that they would use over and over again with each other in their letters?
Um, I'm not that nothing is coming to me, but
Mm.
I what I found quite fascinating was tracing the letters of the youngest brother. I mean, to when he was learning to write. I mean, where like
Wow.
it's letters to Santa Claus, all this kind of stuff, to when he became publisher of the local newspaper, and then he ended up dying of a heart attack when he was 49 or something. But
Mm.
I had the whole trajectory, and so and the daughter, the woman character, um, I'm able to see how her writing changed when she was
Yeah.
writing letters. So that we were just what we were talking about. It's a great example of how her writing changed as she aged, and um, and then she ended up the last letters I have from her were actually typed
Wow.
from the Blitz in London.
Oh
So
my gosh.
so it's pretty cool.
Mm. Wow, there's so much there. I mean, just the idea of having that amount of history in front of you and on paper is like a very, very physical thing in a way that we don't get to relate to our communications anymore unless they're letters.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there are hundreds of letters. My parents, I don't even know how they got them. They were in the house ever since I was a kid, and I rediscovered them a few years ago in the attic at the cottage. Since classic, isn't it? Um,
Yeah.
and I had to read them outside because there was so much mold. It was stinging my eyes just to open the envelopes because they were, you know,
Wow.
going back to the late 1800s. So, and I used surgical gloves even just to, and it really felt like, um, the letters themselves weren't fragile, but I really felt like I want to, um, treat all of this with utter respect,
Mhm.
and also aware that, there were a lot of letters, but I wanted to savor them too. You know,
Yeah.
them all. I tried to organize them by family member or by year or something like that. Trying to see. And once I became interested in the daughter, of course, it was always her letters that interested me the most.
Mhm.
Um, I ended up finding more of them in the National Archives in Ottawa and also at the McGill University Rare Book Room, because the patriarch, it turned out, was a noted figure in Canadian literary history,
Oh, wow.
also completely forgotten, more or less completely forgotten. I mean, he's in the archives, but
Yeah.
nobody really knows him. So, but because of that, all the family papers were more or less saved. So, anyway, it's a great story, and it's all about letters.
Yeah. Does it does it make you think about writing letters more than you think you otherwise would?
Um, well, it hasn't so far, but now that I'm talking about it, I'm thinking, yeah, like this is a good method.
Yeah. I was I was wondering if you had um a formula for making enough space in your life for writing letters. But this is a hope of mine.
Well, I haven't because I don't make space, you know, for it. Because I'm not writing spoon. Uh,
Yeah.
my friend who is writing me from Winnipeg, I will respond to him by longhand when it arrives.
Hmm.
Um, I do remember many years ago um, I had a correspondent in the UK, and whenever I received a letter from her, I would write back right away, and then it would take her months to respond. And then
Yeah.
when she responded, I was so eager, I would write again. So I
Right.
felt like, this isn't fair. You know, how is it that um, she's getting my letters immediately after she writes me, but I'm not hearing from her for months.
Yeah.
So there's that weird competition thing with letters too, right?
Yes.
We're so used to instant gratification that um, it's becomes kind of an element of trust that someone's is going to respond, you know,
Hmm.
eventually.
I have done this to friends where I've overwhelmed them with letters. There was a rather long time in my life where I either didn't have a lot of work or really disliked my work and was also far away from friends. So I had proportionately a lot more time to write to my friends than they did to write to me.
Yeah.
Um, and so I would, you know, do a couple pages. And I like writing too, and I'm fast-ish at it. So that was a thing that I could make time for and make space for. And I remember one of my friends um, texted me and she's like, "Please don't stop sending me letters. I just I just can't write back because I'm uh, like intimidated by the length and then I feel bad and then I overthink it and then I and we started sending post-it notes to each other instead.
Wow. So you write a post-it note and you put it in an envelope?
Yep,
Wow.
because it's very uh limited. Like you can't
Yeah.
be too intimidated by needing to write a post-it note. And that's a doable, bite-sized kind of thing.
Wow.
Mm.
The other thing that comes to mind is I did write a lot of letters when I was young, before computers.
Yeah.
And I have them all. I mean, back from when I was 5 or 6 years old. Um, and it's fascinating that I know if I went and looked at them, um, most of these people I don't have any contact with anymore. It's
Mhm.
like you have relationships for a certain period of time and they fulfill the purpose and then it ends. I mean, it either ends consciously or one person just stops writing, you move on. Um, and we're talking about grief. I mean, you could, um, if I was to look at them, I would think, oh, oh, it's too bad. I lost um,
Yeah.
contact with this person. But I think I'm at a point where I could look at them and just sort of say, just accept that.
Mhm.
It is what it is. It was what it was, and it doesn't need to be anymore. Um, and there's nothing wrong with the fact that it ended.
Yeah. My mom is a big fan of the saying, you have friendships for a reason, a season, or a lifetime.
Hmm.
And that's just one of the three categories, but you never know which one necessarily might be.
There's a wonderful book which you may know called A Gift from the Sea.
I don't know it.
Anne Morrow Lindbergh, the wife of Charles Lindbergh, the aviator.
Ah, okay.
She wrote. It's an exquisite book. It's a little book. It's almost one of these kind of. It's kind of been co-opted a little bit by, spiritual self-helpy kind of stuff. But
Fine
it's
with me.
it's beautifully written. It's quite short, and she uses this metaphor of of the ebbs and flows of the sea, gift from the sea. Friendship is a gift from the sea, and it ebbs and it flows.
Mm.
You have to accept that. So yeah, I would I would encourage you to read that.
Yeah, I will. There's a zine idea I've been working on just kind of in the background about finding success in long distance friendships.
Hmm.
And because I have a lot of them, and so much of it is about finding that friendship's medium. Like my Post-it note letter friend and I don't do Post-it note letters anymore. We have monthly video chat catch-ups because that's more their medium.
Mm.
But on the other hand, my roommate from college and I, there's quite a time difference, but like we never do video calls and we're on other sides of the world. But we will travel halfway around the world to meet up with each other, even if it's just for a few days, and we will write letters. So it's like completely different. And my best friend is pretty bad at writing timely letters, but is excellent at a weekly Monday night phone call. Things like that.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about letter writing, um, and a little bit about other types of writing out in the world when you're escaping the computer. But how how else does writing function in your life, and what different types of writing do you do?
Um, well, I write for a living. I write and edit for a living. So
Mhm.
um, that's very, it can be creative, um, but a lot of the time the editing is usually pretty technical. So in terms of my own practice, I'm I write short fiction. I just have a new novel that's come out um, just a few weeks ago. And then this other one I was mentioning, I'm trying to get into the world. And I write creative nonfiction, personal essays. Um, and I pretty much, I'm hoping to finish that uh, this summer.
Yeah.
Um, I write poetry a little bit, but I don't consider myself a poet at all.
Hmm.
So, um, had I had a poem published in my high school yearbook. I mean, that's my claim to success for poetry. Uh,
Okay.
um, so, so yeah, so that, I mean, that pretty much covers it for me, I think.
Could you tell me more about your recently published novel?
Sure, it's called Borrowed Memories, and it's um, it's the story of a translator in Ottawa who is taking care of his parents at the family cottage, which closely resembles this one.
Mhm.
Um, his mother has Alzheimer's, and his father um, is also in a little bit of distress. He's lost his driver's license. So Ivan, the narrator, has come for the summer to kind of chauffeur, and and try to help them as much as he can. At the same time, he's taken on a pro bono freebie translating project for a Tunisian Quebecois filmmaker. And so he's caught between these two worlds where he's in this very prosaic world of day to day managing his father, who's a narcissist and very over the top.
Mm.
And um, at the same time, he's plunging into this world of the filmmaker who wants to make a film about her traumatic childhood in Tunisia. She's planning to somehow go back. So she's sending him all of these they're almost like journal entries in the form through email. So and he's translating them and kind of entering her world.
Yeah.
And uh, eventually they meet, and the 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 dynamic becomes how much of his life is he going to give up to take care of his parents, and how much of and is there any space in his life to pursue his own needs, which in this case could be falling in love with this filmmaker. So and this all happens. It's set in 2010. It's just around the time of the Arab Spring, so that also figures into it.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing. And how
Mhm.
might one procure this book?
Well, um, from the States is a good question. You should be able to order it through Amazon. You could probably order it through any bookstore.
Mhm.
Uh, uh, I'd actually be curious to see how much, if they can, because it ships from Tennessee, so actually it's a bit, takes forever at the moment to get
Oh
here.
gosh, yeah.
Um, it might be faster and actually cheaper. So,
All right, I will let you know.
oh, yeah,
Wow. Hmm. How do you make sure that you keep writing your own work outside of your writing as your job work?
yeah. Um, I'm in a very peculiar space right now because my novel has just come out and I've been doing
Right.
um, more sort of media stuff, some interviews and different things like that. So, and I'm also in a period of heavy work. So I'm not, um, I haven't been writing anything new, but I have been finalizing and rewriting a couple of essays and I sent them out, three out actually, just
Yeah,
the other day. So, for the first time in a long time, I'm taking pretty much the month of August off.
that's
And
wonderful.
this is, I'm going to be spending some time to go through my essays and finalize them. I was actually at a residency in Vermont last fall where I thought that's what I was going to be doing. And instead, what happened was I was inspired to write new essays. So,
Wow.
because of some things that were going on. So, which has been great, but I'm still not finished. And there's 35 essays now, and I feel like um, because it's not a linear book, it's looking at um, what I'm calling states of absence.
Mhm.
So it could go on and on. And I just decided, okay, I have to, it's always tricky to know when a book is finished, but I feel like I've reached a point where um, it feels right to end it now.
Mhm.
So it's just a question of going through it and rewriting it as a book as opposed to individual essays because there's avoiding the repetition and
Right.
making sure that it makes sense. I actually contracted an editor that I discovered um, in Ottawa a few months ago, and I sent her the whole manuscript. I was before that. I have a writing group, and I have other people that I send essays to.
Yeah,
Nobody has, except me, has read the whole book from beginning to end because it's too much to ask of a writing group to read all of that.
that's a
So,
lot. Yeah.
so she gave me some very good feedback, and so I've been incorporating that into my hopefully final draft.
Mhm. Wow. And when you're sending out essays, how do you determine which opportunities are best for you or which
Yeah,
publications are a good
it,
fit?
it's um it's almost impossible. And, every journal will always say, read our journal to see what we want, and of course you do. And um, what they wanted last time is not necessarily what they want next time. Um,
Right.
there's some journals where it's obvious. I mean, if it's they're looking for so-called flash, which is maybe, and everybody defines that differently, but it could be up to 500 words or up to 1,000 words.
Right.
Um, so uh, the thematic approach is always good.
Hmm.
Essay that I wrote that's going in my book about my relationship with Spoon, for
Hmm.
example. That was in response to a call for, uh, I think it was something about building community and caring. That was kind of a large thing. I can't remember exactly what it was.
Hmm.
So um, that I find is the best way, because the editors are predisposed to at least um, um, be interested in what you've written if you're anywhere close to the theme.
Right. Right.
Lots of there's lots of contests. Some of the contests are completely open.
Hmm.
Um, I sent I submitted one to a contest this week, and there's only one winner. They don't even have second or third. So
Wow.
this is this is ridiculous, you know. But you know, think, oh well, you know,
Yeah. It sounds similar to the way the visual art side of things go. Some calls have themes, some don't, some are more wide open, some things are contests. Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
So and sometimes one particular journal I submitted to 2 or 3 years ago, and I was longlisted for their contest. And that's as close as I've got. I've sent them at least 10 pieces since then, and
Yeah.
nothing is interesting. And
Wow.
but what's fascinating and what gives me um, courage is the ones that a lot of the ones that they've rejected have been published elsewhere, which just goes to show it's about finding the right person at the right time.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
those two things together. It's a lot of luck.
Yeah. There's this wonderful um, story from Elizabeth Gilbert from her book Big Magic that I really enjoyed. It's a lot about writing um, and just doing it and showing up to it. And
Yeah.
she said that she made a game of it as a young writer to every time she received a rejection letter to send something out the same day to apply to some other thing. And I don't remember if she said this in that same book or if it's a practice from elsewhere, but at one point I was in a pretty steady habit of printing out all my rejection letters and putting them up. And the first time I heard that idea, I was like, oh, I could never do that. That'd be very confronting. But when you actually do it, it's like really motivating. Like, hey, I submitted to that and I submitted to that other one. And like they responded, they said no, but like I have proof that I that I did the thing, that I put it out there. So I have some fresh ones I should print and start my
Well,
wall.
some rejection letters I get are they sound even more positive than the acceptance ones. You know, a lot of them are just form letters and they're boring. And you know that they don't have the time. They just don't.
Yeah.
So so when you get one that's personalized,
Hmm.
it's really special.
Yeah, I don't think I've gotten a personalized rejection yet. I'll aim for that.
Well, apparently it's a thing now to try to aim for 100 rejections a year. Have you heard this?
No, I haven't.
I read this came across it a couple of times on Facebook over the last few years. People
All
are
right.
I mean, I don't think necessarily people are trying to get rejected, but the idea, I guess, is that you send enough out, it just keeps you motivated.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. I can, it's the middle of the year now, or just past, so
Yeah,
maybe 50 in this second half. That would be an exciting project to
yeah,
try to encourage among Spoon's network or the rabbit hole, as the Rabbits of Realness side of that is increasingly referred to.
yeah. Well, when you mentioned Elizabeth Gilbert, and this idea of you show up.
Hmm.
Um, I took a workshop many years ago with Amy Hempel, who was a huge influence on me in my so I'm starting out writing short fiction.
Yeah.
And one of her aphorisms was stay open for business.
Oh gosh.
When I was leaving home, leaving for home, the workshop was in um, upstate New York,
Hmm.
Skidmore College. And I was at the train station and I found a brochure on train safety. And I looked at it and it was written and it was like found poetry, the way it was written. And that became the basis of my second published story. So
Wow.
really, yeah, I've always remembered that. It's pretty cool.
So staying open for business is not only the writing, but the receiving.
Absolutely, because anything, especially when you're writing flash or anything that's written around a metaphor or an idea, um, you have to stay open because there's stuff coming at you all the time, and you can transform that.
Yeah, I am not very in the practice of writing, really. Um, but some of my close friends are, and I half told a story at lunch the other day, and one of my coworkers who's a writer was like, "Okay, when are you going to write that story?" And it was about 4 sentences out loud, but it evoked enough to get him to ask that. And I don't really know where to start. Do you
Mm.
start with the 4 sentences spoken and then let it percolate a bit? Or
Um,
it's a very vague question.
well, no, I think a lot of the time I'm not sure where something is going, and
Mm,
so um, I tend to free associate. I tend to think laterally, and um, with the flash nonfiction, there are a lot of leaps of inference. So it's not A, B,
right.
C, it's A, D, C, G. Um, so I don't worry about anything making sense. Um, I focus on the voice
Mm,
and just getting the words down. You know? And if you're lucky, you can uh, make a sentence or make something out of what you what you've written. I mean,
yeah.
a visual artist more than a writer, and so I wonder how that is for you when writers can correct. You can only correct so much in visual art, and then what do you do?
Yeah. Yeah. Something I'm always looking out for is overworking because in a lot of my mediums, there's no coming back from it. In other ones, there are, and it's fine. Um, but I have a couple of things in watercolor that are really right on the edge. And I had this on my watercolor block for 2 years because I didn't think it was done, but I also felt like if I touched it, I would kill it because it would just go right over. And then, but you just have to call it at a certain point. Like, uh,
Yeah, yeah,
and this is not done, but not, ooh, but it could become murky and dense in a second. So I have to really consider my approach and what I might try next with it. But
um,
yeah, keeping enough light in, especially in watercolor-ish medium. I don't usually stick in all one medium. So there's colored pencil and acrylic and marker on this too. But
wow.
yeah, I think I do let that kind of impact how I write because when I do a poem or a very, very short paragraph thing, I'm like, well, there it is. And unless I'm really prodded about it, it's hard for me to make myself go back and do a rewrite, even though I'm very aware that with my poetry, things can shift in a very good way if I give it that time and do a few cycles of rewriting and revisioning.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess it's like visual art that way, is that you can do too much. I mean, you can
Mhm.
always go back, right, with the words. That's the best part of it. But yeah, it's um, you can you can strangle the life out of something
Yeah.
by be looking at too much.
That is a lovely thing about digital art, um, which I don't practice as like a way in which I'm really creating finished pieces, but I do use my iPad to make zines now because it's just so easy. Oh, that letter's a little too big. You just shrink it and can move things around. And as long as you're disciplined about keeping things on different layers, you can really be like, turn that off. Oh no, I did like it. Turn it back on. And do a lot of that revisioning um, in more of the word processing kind of way that we're now accustomed to.
Hmm.
I also wanted to ask you if getting to visit Spoon in person has changed anything for you.
Um, I think it's created a stronger bond. Um, I was really nervous about going to meet him
Yeah.
because, well, I've never been in prison before. That was one thing.
Hmm.
But, um, when you talk to him, it's usually 15 minutes. Sometimes he'll call right back, or there might even be more than one call in a week. But, 15 minutes, half an hour. I was going to spend 5.5 hours with him,
Yeah.
and I wasn't sure what we were going to talk about. It's difficult to, I mean, I don't know how you feel, but um, I'm sure there was a part of him that lives vicariously through
Mm.
people in the world. But uh, it's it feels a little icky to me to talk too much about my life and what I'm doing,
Yeah.
um, all the little minor inconveniences, and um, so that was, I think, overcoming that fear, and we had such a great time. I mean, everybody plays games. Like I had no idea what people do uh,
Yeah.
when they visit, but almost everybody is playing some kind of a board game, or playing cards, or um, doing a jigsaw puzzle or something. So it's a way be in to be with someone, and be present
Hmm.
without um, having the pressure of talking all the time. Because
Yeah.
me, okay, it's the first time I met him. We actually had quite a lot to talk about. But you imagine someone who's in there and their spouse or girlfriend comes to visit every week. I mean,
Right.
what what can really be said over and over? So um, it's I thought it was a really great way to connect with him. And I've been taken up with, that was in April that I met him. And,
Hmm.
since then it's been nonstop with the book, and then
Yeah.
and then I'm following up on the book. Um, and because I'm not in Montreal at the phone number that's connected to the prison, I'm not talking to him.
Oh, okay. Right.
So, it's just texts. And even then I've been, um, remiss. So our conversation is encouraging me to write him a snail mail letter, actually.
Excellent. Yes, I have an overdue return to write to him as well. So I'm excited to do that because Spoon and I have talked about how, yeah, we just say different things when we're writing a letter. And there's a lot that we can convey quickly, like, I'm going to talk to Mark Foss tonight. And Mariah is going to send out a newsletter soon, and, things like that. But in a letter is where you can really talk about the deeper things and the imagistic things and life. Yeah. Good. So
And
I hope we both write
he's,
him letters.
he said, yeah, he said to me, written to me that um, he's getting back into the letter writing too, because it's just it's fast and it's um, immediate, but it's quite limited.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope that can be a model for other snail mail. Hmm. Let's see. I have asked all of my questions.
Um, well, this has been fun.
Yes, thank you again so much.
Well, it's my pleasure. I can't wait to tell Spoon.
Yeah. And I really enjoyed the essays. I'm looking forward to them being published. And I love that one of them is in the Capilano review. So I used to go there and walk the
Oh,
suspension bridge.
oh, right. Yeah, your grandparents in BC, right?
hmm Yeah, I still have a bunch of family there. I think, yeah, one cousin left in Vancouver and everyone else moved a bit farther north to Pell River.
Hmm.
Be there, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. Never been published in Capilano before, so
Wow. Congratulations.
yeah, thank you. I'll, I don't know if they're going to have an online version, but I'll I'll let you know. So,
Excellent. Thank you. And when I get this edited, um, I will send it to you in whichever form.
yeah, please do.
Yeah.
Please do. I'll put it on my site.
Wonderful.
Just been updating it actually. So,
Yeah, that part of doing the creative work.
yeah. Well, have a nice evening. Have a happy 4th of July if you can.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope you had a good Canada Day if you got the day off yesterday or
It
gave
was,
yourself the day
it
off.
was so much a day off. I took a little time.
Good. Okay, thanks again
My
and talk
pleasure.
to you
See
soon.
you.